Have you ever felt like life was too short to be stuck in routines? Or have you felt weighted down by negativity? Because if you have, you might be a type 7. So if you know you're a type 7, or if you know of someone that is, this video is for you. Because that's what we're going to go over, is going through the core motivations of a type 7. I'm Enneagram Ephraim, and I'm going to be your Enneagram coach. Type 7s can be described as very playful. They bring energy and fun and enthusiasm wherever they go, always searching for the next exciting experiences. And when I say they bring the fun, a lot of times 7s are either thinking, or they'll actually walk into a room and say, the fun is now here. And I always make the joke that the party is done because all the 7s have left the building and they're off to another party, bringing that fun with them. 7s can also be described as very versatile. Their mind moves very fast, adapting to new situations and finding creative solutions with ease. And this is because they usually get described as the jack of all trades, master of none. And that's because when they find new exciting things, they go, oh, I want to learn this, or I want to learn this. And sometimes they're actually juggling many different things that they're trying to learn. But once they feel like they've learned it, they go on to the next thing and never truly mastering each topic. They're also described as very optimistic people. They see the world with full possibilities, and also reframe from the struggles into opportunities. And so kind of more of a joking way, if you've ever seen the movie The Mighty Python and the Holy Grail, this is like a British comic movie. It's like a satire of like the King Arthur. And if you haven't seen the movie, they walk around and they have coconuts, and they're like acting like if horses were galloping type of thing. It's kind of it's their way of doing things ridiculous. But the King Arthur character gets to this bridge, and on the other side of a bridge, when I say a bridge, there's like a little stream, and it's like you could step over the stream, but there's this tiny bridge. And there's this black knight standing there saying, none shall pass. And he's like, well, I got to pass. And he's like, well, you can't pass. So what happens? They end up dueling. And so the King Arthur character chops off one of the arms of the Black Knight. And so King Arthur's like, oh, the fight's over. But the Black Knight continues to fight. And so the hysterical communication they have with each other is, what are you going to do? Your arm, you can't fight. You don't have an arm. And he's like, oh, this is just merely a flesh wound. And he tries to keep fighting. And that's kind of the optimistic of a 7. That when nothing should work, they always find a way to make it work, to find opportunities where there shouldn't be. And so just like the knight, where you shouldn't be able to continue fighting, he's like, oh, I'm not worried about an arm. I'm going to keep fighting. And so that's kind of just how optimistic a 7 can really be. 7s can be very scattered. Going back to the jack of all trades, they will eventually say yes to too many things. And that's because they get so excited about, oh, I like this or I like that. Ooh, this is exciting. And so this is where, because they say yes to too many things, to too many possibilities, a lot of times they end up making too many commitments they actually can't complete. And finally, you can describe a 7 as escapist. So when life feels painful or boring, they distract themselves with new adventures to avoid difficult emotions. And so kind of when you think biblically, like the character Jonah, God's like, hey, you need to go to Nineveh and you need to tell them to repent and change their ways. And Jonah's like, I'm not going to do that. And so instead of just staying where he is at, he gets into a boat to go as far away as he can. And so that's kind of how 7s, when they feel that emotional pain, they don't just stay where they're at. No, I need to go as far away as I can to escape into the world, to get away from these painful feelings that I'm feeling in the moment. Now let's get to the core motivations of a 7. And if you haven't seen any of the videos, everyone has the same core motivations. There's the core fear, the thing emotionally we are running away from, and the core desire, the thing we want to obtain and experience. And then also the core weakness. This is a thing that we use to stay away from our fear and try to obtain our desire. However, too many times we either get a false version of it, of what we desire, and we never truly are satisfied. And then there's finally the core longing of our heart, the thing we want to hear and experience. So the core fear of a 7 is being deprived, trapped in emotional pain, limited or bored, missing out on something fun. Now, let's talk about the ways 7s can feel limited. They want options. They want as many options as possible so that they can decide which is going to be the best experience or what could be the most fun, or can I do them all? When you only give them one option, that's where they feel kind of almost like in a jail, confined, and this I only got one thing I can do, and it doesn't sound as fun or exciting. But when you give them options, that's when they get really excited. And I can go do this, I can go do that. Now, when we talk about boredom, there's two ways that 7s can experience boredom. There's the 7s that will experience boredom, and they go, oh, this is the worst. Because now they're feeling it, and I'm not doing anything fun or exciting in the moment, and now I'm bored. It's like putting a child in timeout, and they're just facing the wall. That's the worst thing you could do to a 7. Like, this is boring. Then there's a 7 that would say, oh, I don't experience boredom. I'm never bored. And that's because they're always in forward motion, always doing something fun and exciting. And even when they're in their moment of doing their adventure or doing something that they like to do, they already have on the calendar 5 more things that they're going to go do just to make sure they never experience boredom. And then finally, there's the fear of missing out. So they are the true FOMOs of the group. And the funny story that I just remembered, during one of my life groups I was in, I knew someone was a type 7 and they were skipping life group. And so I sent them a text saying, hey, you don't want to miss out on tonight's life group. And this person quickly ran and got coffee and then showed up late because they were scared of missing out on whatever was happening with the group. I'd like to remind people this is not like to manipulate or to coerce people into doing things they don't want to do, but that's how the 7s, that's how they don't want to miss out on the possibility of something fun. And again, to reiterate, 7s really like to avoid pain. Now, this isn't a physical pain, but what this is the emotional pain, and a lot of times it stems from anxiety and fear, and they're willing to do anything to avoid those two. Now, moving on to the core desire. They want to be happy, fully satisfied, and content. And they say to themselves, if I just get this next amazing adventure, I will feel complete. Again, 7s have this amazing ability to, it's called the silver lining, kind of the optimistic. It's another way of calling it out. It's a silver. They have this silver lining, and they always see the positive, and they never get really embarrassed. And so, because they want to experience all the fun things, even if taking risks. So 7s could be in the back seat of a cop car with their friends, and they look around and they go, "Well, at least we had some fun." And then the friends are like, "We're going to jail." And so you got the 2 different viewpoints of 7s rationalizing their fun, even though they got into a little bit of trouble. And because 7s will always want to be happy and content, imagine a classroom. 7s can get called the class clown. And that's because in school, the teacher's like, okay, go read your books. And the 7 gets done with reading their books, and Now they're bored. And so what do? They entertain themselves. They make jokes. They're telling stories with their classmates. And they ended up distracting the whole class. And this goes into the next thing. 7s radiant joy, happiness. And this is very contagious. Just like the flu, when no one wants their kid to get the flu, so they keep people away from them. Because once they get in contact with them or around them, their kid is now sick. And that's the same thing with the 7. With the joy and happiness and fun, with the class clown, they can get a half a class or a full class all joking around and having fun, and it can be distracting at times. And so, but that's how contagious the 7 can be with their joy out there. They want everyone to experience it, not just themselves, so they share it with everyone. Now, the core weakness of a 7 is called gluttony. This is an insatiable hunger for excitement, experience, and stimulation, trying to fill themselves up and want to avoid that inner emptiness that they experience. So 7s always go back to saying to themselves, if I could just get a little bit more. And so if you imagine a bucket where 7s throw everything inside of it, every fun adventure, any new exciting idea that comes their way, they throw it into the bucket. And they try to attempt to make themselves feel full and content. However, at the bottom of this bucket, there's these holes. And so it quickly runs dry very fast. And another way you could look at this is cotton candy. When you get cotton candy, it's this big thing, and you're like, oh my goodness, this is And then when you eat it, it's sweet to the taste, and you get a sugar high, and then about 5 minutes later, you're like, I'm still hungry. And that's how 7s look at the world a lot of times. And so for growth for 7s, what they need to start doing, treating the world more like a jawbreaker. And not those tiny ones. I'm talking about those like baseball-sized ones that are ridiculous. Because when you crack it open, you get these different layers of flavors. And to remind the 7 that even when they get to a flavor they don't like, it could be the yellow one, and it's like, oh, it's banana, it's not my favorite, I really want to get to the other ones, is because they have to learn to savor everything. Even the parts that they don't like. Even that like yellow flavor, the banana, I don't really like this flavor, but learning to savor it. Not just the good things, but also the bad things. And getting to the core longing for the 7, it says that you will be taken care of. That's the heart, that's what they long to hear. And they always think this new adventure, new excitement is going to be the thing that's going to take care of them. And so biblically, what this looks like is, I love the story of Jesus at the well in the Gospel of John. This is chapter 4. And he's speaking to this Samaritan woman, and they're going back and forth, and Jesus finally kind of exposes her a little bit and says, the man you're not with isn't your husband, and kind of goes into her life, and she's kind of shocked because she's has to come to this well every day to get water, and she's doing all these things that maybe she shouldn't. And finally Jesus says to her in verse 14, because she's all like, where do I get this? I'm trying to obtain this thing, and she's going about it in all the wrong ways. And in verse 14, Jesus says, but whoever drinks the water I give them will never thirst. Indeed, the water I give them will become in them a spring of water welling up to eternal life. And so for 7s, they need to start not putting adventure, excitement, stimulating things, new ideas into their bucket first. What they need to do is they have to start with Jesus. And when they do that, they'll realize their bucket is no longer running dry. And then anything else that they put into their bucket is just actually an overflow because they're already content with what they have. And so to remind 7s as a little encouragement that they need to stop chasing after the world because the world will never satisfy them like cotton candy. And when you actually find contentment in Jesus, what happens is everything else will just be an overflow of joy that you have. And so if you are a type 7, I would love to hear what people misunderstand by you. What are the things that you get mistyped, or I wish someone would know this about me? Put that in the comments. And if you found this video helpful in any way, like it and subscribe or share it. And then for everyone, if you haven't, if you want to dive deeper into the Enneagram, I have a free guide that you can download in the description. And for everyone else, I will see you next time.